Anyway, a couple of things, and this has already been mentioned. Dewey's just a walking, talking sports, knew all the sports records you could ever imagine. Like, and I'll just give you an example. Like, he could, you'd ask him, hey, who ran the 440 in the Mexican Olympics? And he'd say, oh yeah, it was so and so, and his time was so and so. And I go, what? Off the top of his head, or back when the Grizzlies first started playing football, he'd probably tell you the score and who was the coach and everything else. Just amazing. And like Doug was saying, records when he was there at the ranch, and the last time I saw him, he asked me one Sunday, he says, Dave, will you go into the den, and I've got a plastic folder in there, and when you get that plastic folder, it's got a tablet in it, and I need a black pen and a pencil with an eraser on it. And so I went and got it, and I need a sports page. And so there he did, just like Doug was saying, writing the records down what the Grizz are doing,
Wow.
Just amazing with him, with his records, constantly. All the time I lived with him, he did that every Sunday. And like I was asking Doug last night, how long did he keep those records? He says, from what, 55 to just recently, so. Anyway, Dewey, when I was growing up, before he was married to Pat, when we lived in Denver, Dewey had a weird habit of smelling his new clothes or his clean clothes, and I always thought, he never got a bad smell out of those, I hope, because that was just the way he was. He always smelling his clothes and making sure that they were clean or whatever. Anyway, some of the really neat things he did is he took care of me a lot with doing applications for work, or he did our taxes for years, and any other forms that we had to fill out, he was there for me, which I really appreciated. He recorded, little cassette tapes for us, and it'd have like Glenn Miller and the name of the song, In the Mood or whatever, but he'd have like 20 of these things on his tape, and his printing was always excellent. And he'd print just a little bit of thing on this, on the little thing for the cassette, and the little insert. And I'd record music for him, and I'd say, assorted music from Willie Nelson. But that's just the way he was. Anyway, Dewey was a perfectionist. Now this, and I'm not, all this I'm saying is not making fun of him, it's just admiring him. But this one particular time was funny, and this was typical Dewey. Dewey was a perfectionist, and let me read this. I remember when we planted this lawn in this new house. It was a hot day then, and we worked all day getting the lawn ready to plant. Well, knowing Dew, every bit of the yard had to be perfectly level. I mean, boy, it better be right on. So it was a long, long day. So it meant throwing the seed out and watering it. It meant watering it. It meant going over and over, making sure it was all level. Anyway, Dewey was so proud of everything, so that went well with the lawn. So after he sowed the seed, we spent a long time watering it. That evening we sat down, we were drinking a beer, and here again it was a hot day. Being so happy about what we'd accomplished that day. Well, there was a knock on the front door. This is great. We went to the door. Somehow, they lived on a corner lot, okay? So somehow, from the corner of the street to the porch, this drunk had walked across a newly planted lawn and left like 3-inch footprints across. Okay, so Dewey not thinking to tell the... Well, anyway, first of all, Dewey saw what the prints were doing, and not thinking to tell the drunk to use the sidewalk when he left. Instead, started yelling profanities at the drunk. Dewey scared the guy so much he went right across the yard where he came from. Another thing, Dewey was really generous. I mean, super generous to everyone but himself. Okay, when he used to barbecue, he used tongs to pick out the barbecue briquettes and put them in water and he got me doing that, saving the briquettes and all that. Well, I realized that after doing this for a while, saving those briquettes, you'd have a briquette about that big by the time you're done for the next barbecue. But that was Dewey, and he did that for a long time with the barbecue. He'd sit there with the tongs. Finally, I realized, this is not making sense for me. This is when I looked at it. But then the other thing that used to drive me crazy, he used to drive on tires. I mean, bald tires, and I make this as a joke, but they were so bald the Mexicans wouldn't even use them for making huaraches. Yeah, I don't know how he ever made it without, Anyway, another thing that, there's so many things like Doug could say, and I could say, all of us could say about Dew, because we all loved him, and he loved all of us. But we were out salmon fishing, and I'm not talking the fishing stories this time, because we all have a lot of fishing stories we talk about Dew. But anyway, a bunch of us were salmon fishing out in the ocean and out at El Waco. And my wife, Sandy, was with us. And Dewey had a lunch, and Dewey, whenever he packed a suitcase or anything else, it had to be perfect, right? I mean, everything, well, his lunch is the same way. He had to wrap them, his a certain way and take care of it. So he had his lunch packed and was starting to open it up and was just ready to put his sandwich in his mouth, and Sandy started feeding the fish. Dewey takes his sandwich back, puts it back, and not a word out of it.
Oh, God. Funny.
Anyway, another time, just another memory that I have that I wrote down. We were at my folks' house, and it was just doing, I don't know why we were there without, our wives and this and that, but we were at my folks' house, and my mother used to, when we would come, always try to make a special dinner for us. And so Dewey had gone out to their apartment. They lived in an apartment at the time, and gone out and in the kitchen somehow saw a wrapper from lamb chops. So he comes back out where I am, and without my folks being around, he says, "Dave, Mom knows I don't like lamb. What is she doing?" And I'm going, "I don't know, dude. Don't worry about it. I'll eat your portion." Just without her saying it, slide it to me. He says, "Yeah, I'll do that." Okay, so we sit down to eat, and my mother had cooked the most beautiful prime rib that we had. And so Dewey is getting his meat, and I said, "Oh, dude." He said, "Just give me a dirty look. Don't even mention it. I'm not giving you my meat." Anyway, he hated lamb, didn't he? He just did not like lamb. But anyway, as everybody knows, he loved to entertain. He loved to entertain. Loved to entertain everybody and anybody. And there was not like you say, there was no stranger to him. Nobody was a stranger to him. He loved to tell stories, and one story I know was passed around about me, okay? And I'll kind of tell you what happened. Dewey was in a carpool, and this was after I moved away and I was working a different job, and he was in a carpool. I was going to Douglas Aircraft, and they drove over Topanga Canyon, which is kind of a windy two-lane road. And I'd been to the beach that day on my motorcycle, and by the way, this wasn't a big, huge Harley, just a little sport bike that I had. But, I was kind of wild and crazy, and so one of the carpoolers says, "Look at that crazy guy passing all these people." And so I'm passing him, and Dewey looks out to me and says, "Oh, that's my brother." Anyway, just another cute story. As you know, and you were saying, and everybody said, he's a Grizz lover, and I didn't go to the university. As a matter of fact, I live in Spokane, so when they play EWU, Dewey and I normally had a bet on EWU, and so just this last year, he was going the path over to see EWU, and he wasn't feeling good at the time, and I didn't get to see him when he was in Spokane, but they were playing at EWU, so we made a bet, and it was a $5 bet. And I said, "Dewey, the Grizz are so over-favored on this. You got to give me some points." "Well,